So, you went to your local game store or possibly ordered it online or even ordered the singles because you wanted all 4 triple rares of BAVSARGRA, the new Dragon Empire deck. What do you do now? What do you do to upgrade this deck to make it more or less competitively viable, or at least make her skills and abilities with the equips make sense and work together coherently? Now let's find out. Starting off with your grade 3s, of course you're going to be maxing out on your Persona Ride. There's just really no reason not to, since we don't have a grade 4 version of her yet. We're obviously gonna get one, like literally like main character status. Well, not like main character, but like antagonist status. And then we run 4 of the, what's this guy's name? We're gonna call it Sword Equipped. You're maxing out on the copies of your Sword Equipped card because of its ability to give your opponent, basically after the battle that you swing, if you're equipped with it, you sack it off to give your opponent a damage. Because of that, you want to max out on your copies of this card to keep re-equipping it every turn. And if your opponent is at low damage, they've been healing, they've been guarding really well, you get to deal free damage essentially. And then I'm only running 1 of the shield equipped just because it's searchable and it doesn't have an ability that it retires itself like the sword equipped. So you really only ever need to equip 1 shield and that's it. And what deck is it? Verita? Yeah, unlike Overdress, you can actually just run 1 of this, draw it, and it's okay because you could search out the other one. Because you could search either or with your ride line. Oh, a quick thing to note before we move on. Before we move on with the rest of the deck profile, let me just make it known, like super quick, like real quick. This is gonna be like 2 seconds. That BAVSARGRA, when you while she is equipped, it could be equipped with 1 or equipped with both. If you Persona Ride, it's in the tips and guide booklet that comes with the starter deck. When you Persona Ride, you do not lose your equips. So that, I know that was like something kind of confusing. It confused me when I first opened like the deck, and I'm like, oh, this is nice, but do you want to keep your Persona Rides? Does Persona Rides work? And then like I just like skimmed through the booklet to see if it had anything about it, and it said, yeah, Persona Rides do work. Because it confused me in the beginning, so I don't know if it might have confused you guys. Onto the attackers. One of your best attackers in this deck that you get to, you abuse his ability of being an 18k beater if your opponent's front row is cleared because of BAVSARGRA's ability to clear the front row while she has equips. So it's 18 by itself. You put a 10k booster behind it, it's 28. On Persona Ride's turns, it's 38. It's just it's a really good card, especially standalone, because it's 18k. It means they can't just intercept. They actually need either a 10k shield, which right now only Dragon Empire and Dark States, yeah, Dragon Empire and Dark States only have access to, or they're gonna need to throw out 2 5s, or they're gonna throw out a 15. So it's just a really good card that you don't necessarily want to max copies out of it because you're already running like so many 3s. So I think 3 is the perfect number. You really only ever want 1. Like if you get another one, it's just kind of like a bonus because you want to put the 10k boost behind your Vanguard, and then you prioritize putting it behind the rear, or at least that's how I do it. And then we're running 3 of, I don't know its name, so I'm gonna call it Blue Chicken. You're running 3 of the Blue Chicken. You're maxing out on this card just because it's an easy 15k attacker if you're equipped. There's really not much else to say about it. I was running Hunger Sore in the beginning, and I did think about running Okashuni, the Iron Blade card, that if your opponent has 2 or less rears, it gets 5k. But the thing is, like, yes, you board clear, but you don't have any unless like of course you play it, but then you're supporting more cards for like a retire aspect, and it kind of like messes with your numbers. So I'm just focusing more on the fact that I can clear the front row to get off Volcanic Gun Dragon's ability to be able to be an 18k beater or make a 28k line. So that's the reason why I'm running this as well. You put an 8k behind it, swings 23, Persona Ride 33, magic numbers, baby. Anyways, onto your final attacker. Yeah, you're playing. I'm playing 4 of I know all their effects. I swear to God, I know all their effects. I just don't know their names. Brachioforce. You're playing 4 of Brachioforce. Now you might be wondering, why are you playing this card? The reason that I'm playing it is because BAVSARGRA does not have any draw power outside of draw triggers if you choose to run them. So my idea was, what's a card that I could use to quote-unquote rush in the early game, and what's a card that could help me cycle through my deck? Brachioforce came to mind. When his attack hits anything, you sack him to sack one of your opponent's rears and draw a card. You still get to draw a card if they don't have a rear. So literally, turn 2, you could call 2 of these guys out, swing, 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 and your opponent either blocks them or you just get to cycle out your deck. It doesn't make any magic numbers. Like, you could put an 8k behind it. The most it's going to be is 18. That's the only sucky part about it. But I did want to play some semblance of an quote-unquote early game engine, to whereas, because it's not like it's not a strong deck, but because it's so like linear and you don't have many options in your toolbox, it's really nice to have the option of an early game, just to be able to have some semblance of an early game, is what I mean. Let me see something real quick. How far does this go? Goes right here. All right. Let me just organize this for you guys real quick, so has a semblance of making sense, I guess. Does that make sense? It's a little bit off. I'm sorry, I'm so anal about things like this. But yeah, and then your grade 2, I think I'm gonna put them like this. Alright, I'm so sorry. We can go to the grade 1s now. Oh, that was so weird. I'm so sorry, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. You're playing 4 of Madoka. Now this card, arguably... Ooh, I gotta raise that guy up. Arguably, this card, out of all the Dragon Empire decks, well, you could say it works with Overlord pretty well as well, because it's searchable. But out of all the Dragon Empire decks, it works the best with BAVSARGRA. Right now, at least, it works with BAVSARGRA. Because depending on how many cards your opponent has in the drop zone, it's a 10k shield, it's a 15k shield, and you get to res it back to your field, and it's a static 10k booster or attacker. Which means when you equip the BAVSARGRA, you could res it behind her, you're swinging 23. Because normally you would want to, unless you're trying to do an aggressive push, you want to equip the shield first for defense. And if you're equipping the shield first for defense, she's not going to get any power when she attacks, because the sword gives her attack. So you want to res this from the grave, make her 23, make it a number to whereas they can't just one card block it, unless they have like an overtrigger. So you really just want to max this card out at 4 copies, because you need to see it early. You know, make the column with your Volcanic Gun Dragon, make the column behind your Vanguard, and you want to max out copies of it because it literally works best with BAVSARGRA's ability. Now, this is where the Brachioforce and this next slot I'm going to show you is where your deck can deviate, because BAVSARGRA, you could really play anything. You're more or less just teching out with Dragon Empire cards. But a card that I found that works really well in every other Dragon Empire deck except really Overdress, I would say. Sorry, I gotta take a swig of water. Except really, Overdress is my boy Orlando. Where can I put Orlando? Where? Now, Orlando does not specify that you need a Eugene Vanguard for any of its abilities. Now, yeah, that works out way better. That works out better. Now, the reason that I'm running Orlando over like a myriad of other great Dragon Empire great ones, you could run Tench instead. You could run Kizan Reiji. The reason I don't want Kizan Reiji is because it messes with your soul. You only want to use your soul to equip your sword and to nuke the front row with BAVSARGRA's ability. And this helps me replenish my soul. I can res this back from the drop zone with BAVSARGRA. I could swing with, let's say, a weaker column first. Like, let's say I have a Brachioforce. I could swing 18, and then I can swing with BAVSARGRA. This is going to go into Soul, give my Vanguard plus 5k. So it's swinging, what? With the 10k booster, you're swinging like 23, 28. Or let's say, like, you don't have the 10k booster. You're swinging at least, like, 18. So you're swinging, like, 18, 18, and then possibly either 18 or 23 on your final column. And it goes to Soul. And because of BAVSARGRA's ability happens in the main phase, you can res this back from your Soul. So it gives you another form of recursion. Like, so, again, if you Soul charge it off of her own ability, you could take it out of your Soul, as well as take it from the drop zone, put it on field, and shove it into Soul to res it back from Soul when you pop. So it's just a really good card, and that's the reason why I'm maxing out copies of it, because it enables your Vanguard's ability. Yeah, there's really not much else to say. It enables your Vanguard's main ability, and because it costs a Soul Blast too, you really just want to max out copies of it. This is the only other card that I can think of that makes Soul is my baby Ice Girl. That when she sees that you pop the card, you pop her to look at the top card of the deck. You can either call it or Soul charge it, but I don't like that because it's random. To whereas this is controlled because it's putting itself into Soul, and it's not you. It doesn't necessarily have to be a minus from hand or a minus from field, because you could res it to shove it into Soul. Res it, use it as a booster, and then shove it into Soul when you attack with your Vanguard. And then, not much to explain. You want to max out on your 4 PGs. It's very much needed in set 3 meta. Well, it's needed, and then it's not needed, because, oh my god, the best deck in the game right now. Like, I didn't think Bruce was the best deck in the game, but, like, it is very much the best deck in the game right now because it has access to Quen Lu. Quen Lu makes it so you can't guard with grade 1 or higher, which means you could only, it gives a silent time effect to your opponent's rear guards that are attacking you 4 times. You can only guard with your triggers or choose not to guard. So it's just, it is very important to max out copies of it, because you do need, if you can't use it for anything else, use it for the Vanguard or use it as discard fodder. But then again, not everyone is playing Quen Lu OTK with Bruce, so you don't necessarily, I guess technically you don't necessarily have to fear that, but it's scary for me. That's what keeps me up at night, I tell you what. You're playing the Dragon Empire Overtrigger. I think this has now become officially the best deck to whereas the Overtrigger works with, at least until set 4, because it restands, and it's not that she keeps the crit till the end of battle. She keeps the crit forever. So you could literally, like, you could make her super fat. You could make her, without Persona Ride, she can be like 33 with a 10k booster. With Persona Ride, 43. Restand, attack again, 2 crit, 100 mil. And let's say your opponent was at low damage, you could just ping them with the shield and then put them at the exact amount of damage you need them to die, like 4, for example. And then if you check crits, because you are running 8 crit, there's no reason not to. Crits are good. You could, if you check crits, again, stack them on the rears, and literally you could force 2 crit until your opponent dies. Like, whenever I checked this Overtrigger before, like it almost never killed the opponent. But now, because of BAVSARGRA's ability, I feel like this makes this Overtrigger way more potent than I guess it already was, because you were like, no one else had a static crit, or no one else had any other type of pressure from the Vanguard. BAVSARGRA does. Like, if they were at 4 in any other Dragon Empire deck, they could attempt to chump it and just take the attack and then just block the rears. So that's the reason you want to play this one. It works, in my opinion, works the best in this deck. And then you're running 3 of the fronts. Like I said, you could swap this out for draws if you want. You could play 4 draws. I wouldn't play any more than 4, but you could play 4 draws if you want. But me, I am very scared of decks that play Quen Lu. Quen Lu is a very unfair card, and I believe it should be banned in the future, or at least eroded. Because it's a very unfair card that it gives a silent time effect to all your rears. And then if they just like increasingly make the rear guards very big, like how many grade 0s do you have? Like how much damage can you actually afford to take? Like, it's crazy. So yeah, that's why you're not maxing out on it, because you obviously want to max out on the crits, but it's important to have it. It's important to have the free 20k shield. And then, like I said, your 8 crit. Flail Dragon. This is actually what gave me the idea to run Orlando in BAVSARGRA. Shout out to my homie Yamil. He was telling me like, oh, you can regenerate soul with BAVSARGRA because you could just res this crit and then shove it into soul. And I'm like, yeah, you're right, you could do that, but that doesn't really seem like too much of an optimal play to me. So then I was thinking, what other way in Dragon Empire can we create soul? And I thought about my homeboy Orlando, and I'm like, damn, rezzing Orlando seems like a very fat play, because you could stack power on your Vanguard and you feed yourself more soul. And then the last piece of the puzzle, the 4 heals. There's really nothing much else to say. Like I said, with you want to either dump, like, because of BAVSARGRA's ability to res a grade 1 or less from the drop zone, you want to dump your Orlandos early, like pitch them for ride, pitch them for guard, and you want to dump your Madokas early to res them, to have those 10k boosters, to have that access to the soul and the power. Like, you want to put the, okay, if you're equipping the shield first, you want to put the Madoka behind the Vanguard. If you're equipping the sword first, then you could put the Madoka on a rear guard. Let's say if you have a Volcanic Gun Dragon access, and they happen not to have a front board. Or you could also just call an Orlando if you do have the sword equipped, and swing for 18 or swing for 23 with the Bluebird chicken. And then swing for 28, and let's say like you have another but another rear guard to at least attempt to stack triggers on. But yeah, like, comment down below, tell me what you think about the deck, any tips, tricks, ideas. I really like this deck. I do believe it's very competitive. Not like very competitive. I wouldn't call it tier 1. I would call it like not bottom tier 2, but middle tier 2, because it has the ability to superior call from the drop. It has board wipe. It has an inherent crit. It can make nice columns that require a 20k shield or 2 cards to guard. So yeah, this is more or less a budget-friendly option. If you want to play this deck, all you really have to do is pick up Orlandos. I guess this is the most expensive, like technically the most expensive card, because I know these went up a couple dollars. You don't really need these. You could cut these out the deck and just play regular crits. But all you really need to pick up is the Madokas, the Orlandos, a start deck, and an Overtrigger. Yeah, this is a very budget-friendly deck. Later.